Chapter 6. When Tracy arrived at Steve's house the following afternoon, he was just coming in from work. He was covered in sweat and had a shadow of a beard forming. She went to kiss him, but he held up a hand. "I've got to shower first. I'm sure I don't smell as fresh as I would like." She grinned. "I wasn't going to say anything." He laughed. "You don't have to tell me. I already know." He opened the front door as Ringo ran across the room toward them. He went to his knees, petting the dog. "I know I've been gone forever, haven't I?" He looked up at Tracy. "I've had Ringo since high school, but Dad never let him in the house. It was the first thing I did the night he died. I opened the door, and now Ringo is all over in here. He's old and doesn't need to be out in the heat anymore." He led her into the kitchen, and she put the bags of groceries she was carrying onto the counter. "Go ahead and use whatever you need. I'll be down in about 20 minutes. I'd be faster, but I want to shave. And don't let Ringo sweet talk you into people food. The vet is concerned he's getting too fat in his old age." "All right. I'll get going." She watched him leave, admiring his backside in his tight Wranglers. The man should be in a commercial for jeans. She smiled at the dog, who lay in the doorway, seeming to be unsure if he should be watching her or guarding Steve. She'd decided to make a traditional Irish stew for supper, so she immediately got to work on it. She'd met with her realtor that morning and made the offer on the building. She was sure it wouldn't be a problem because it had been vacant for 20 years. The bank had long since owned the building, and she knew it was just a matter of them accepting her offer. She'd already decided who she would use to renovate the building, and they'd slotted the months of June and July for the work. She was getting more excited by the minute. She hummed as she cooked, remembering the sweet woman in Ireland who had taught her to make this particular dish. She'd gotten a job waitressing for a pub during the summer she was in Ireland, and the cook had become a friend of hers. On a mutual day off, she'd gone to Sinead's house, and her friend had taught her to make 3 different Irish dishes. She'd tweaked the stew to make it taste just a bit better, and she knew it would be one of her best sellers. She hoped that Steve liked it as much as she did. By the time the stew was simmering on the stove, Steve had returned to the kitchen, sitting in one of the chairs there. The kitchen was old-fashioned. It obviously hadn't been renovated since Steve's mother had been alive. She wondered what it would look like without all of the 60s decor. Tracy popped the soda bread she'd prepared into the oven, and then went over to sit at the table with Steve. "It might be time to renovate your kitchen. Put in some appliances from the 80s and not the 60s. He shrugged. "I'm not much of a cook. I throw a hungry man dinner into the oven, and I'm good to go." She shook her head. "Man cannot live by TV dinners alone." "This is true. And it's why you're here to cook for me." "I guess so, but I'm not here every day." "Yes, but I can have my hungry man on days you're not here. Or go into town and eat at the diner, where there's always comida." "This is true. I need to see the kittens after we eat. The bread will be done in 30 minutes, and the stew will be ready about then. This is one of the recipes I plan to serve at the pub. Are you going to have American food as well?" He reached down and ruffled Ringo's fur as he talked to her, and she could tell they were both used to the affectionate gesture. "I'll probably have burgers and chicken fried steak. But it'll be mainly Irish fare. Fish and chips, Irish nachos, Irish stew, shepherd's pie. Sounds delicious. As long as I can get a burger there on occasion. I'm working on getting my herd to be as lean as possible. Making the beef that comes from them healthier. I feel like I should be your meat supplier." She laughed. "I have no idea how I'm going to make that work. I haven't really thought about my meat supplier, but I have a feeling I'm not going to be working directly with a rancher." "Probably not. But you should keep me in mind." "I'll do that." What movie did you choose? I went with Twilight Zone, the movie. I thought it would be fun. Oh, I haven't seen that yet, and I want to. You might have to follow me home and check for monsters under my bed when we're done, though. He laughed. If I need to, you know I will. Heather's going to get here Friday for the wedding. She's staying with Mom and Dad, but I'm going to get her from the airport after work on Friday. Do you want me to drive with you? I'm assuming she's flying into San Antonio? She is. Would you mind? It would be nice not to have to make the drive alone. I would love to have more time with you. You know that. Steve frowned at her for a moment. You know that you're an addiction, right? How am I an addiction? It's been years since we were close, and suddenly, you're filling my every thought. I'm not quite sure how this happened so quickly. I think it's just the natural flow of things. We were such good friends as teenagers, and now as we're getting to know each other again, it seems like we belong. I don't know if that makes sense. Sure it does. He reached out and squeezed her hand. Why didn't I ask you out as soon as you got back from Europe? Because I was going to college and working at the car dealership, and I had no time for anyone or anything. It's only been the last couple of years that I've slowed down a little, but I've been picking up as many hours as I could so I could save up for the pub. No, it's really the right time for us now. Fate has had a hand in our relationship. Fate? You believe in fate? She shrugged. Maybe not in the traditional sense, but I think God has a hand in when things happen to and for us. I think He knew it was time for us to be together, so He sent you my way. Maybe. The oven beeped then, so he sat back in his chair and waited for her to get the bread from the oven. That smells so good. The bread or the stew? She asked. Tracy couldn't believe how excited she was for him to try her stew. Yes. She laughed, digging in his cabinets for bowls and filling them with the stew. Then she cut the bread and buttered 2 pieces, putting them on small plates and taking them to the table. What do you want to drink? There are Cokes in the fridge. Just grab a couple. She nodded and went to his refrigerator, getting out 2 bottles of Coke and opening them with the opener he had as a magnet on his fridge. Your fridge only has 1 magnet. That's so sad. Should refrigerators have more than 1 magnet? He asked, not sure where she was going. You haven't been in my kitchen, obviously. I have at least 50 magnets covering the front and one side of my fridge. It has all my travels and everything that amuses me covering it. That sounds fun. I'm going to have to see your fridge sometime soon. He picked up the spoon that was beside his bowl. This stew looks amazing. I hope you like it as much as I do. He took a bite and nodded, smiling. It's fabulous. After their meal, they did the dishes together, and she told him again he needed to remodel the kitchen. There's not even a dishwasher. Do I need a dishwasher? I usually just eat from the foil package. She sighed. You need a dishwasher. You need a modern kitchen. Maybe someday. He dried the pot she had made the stew in and put it away. Okay, let's go see the kittens. She grinned. That was the reason she'd come, after all. To see his kittens. She followed him out to the barn, determined not to fall in love with one of them. She loved animals, but she really wasn't home enough to take care of one. Ringo ran alongside them, obviously at home all over the ranch. Tracy loved to watch Steve with Ringo. They had a special bond. He led her to the back of the barn, to a small mound of hay, and there was the mother cat, lying on her side while the kittens nursed. He reached down and picked one up, handing it to her. Tracy cuddled the kitten under her chin, loving the feel of the fur on her neck. He's so soft. She dropped to her knees in the hay, still snuggling the kitten, reaching out to stroke another. Are you trying to find them homes? He shook his head. Nah. It won't hurt for them to wander around here forever. Barn cats are good for a ranch. They keep the mice and rats at bay. She shuddered. I don't want to think about mice and rats. I hope I don't have a problem with them in the pub. I didn't see signs of them, but with as long as the building has been vacant, there's a good chance. Just get an exterminator in there right away. Not a big deal, while it's still vacant. When do the contractors start their work? Well, I have to have my offer accepted first, but I'm planning on June and July. Realtor says we can close pretty fast with as long as the building has been on the market. She grinned at him. I can't believe I'm finally doing it. All of the blocks are in place. I'm really excited for you. He held his hand down to help her up as she set the kitten down. Want to go watch our movie? She nodded. Yeah, let's go. I wanted to see that while it was in theaters, but I was always too busy. I need to get my priorities straight. Twilight Zone should always be at the top of my list. Yes, it should. I've seen all of the old ones. I think I'm going to buy the whole collection. That would be awesome. I'd watch them all with you. It's a date. They held hands as they walked out of the barn. He led her to the stable. I have a new foal as well. He's 6 weeks old. Want to see? Are you trying to romance me with baby animals? Tracy asked, looking at him skeptically. I don't know. Is it working? Absolutely. Tracy walked to the foal and stroked its head. He's beautiful. Ringo stayed back, as he had with the kittens. He obviously knew it wasn't his place to mess with the baby animals. Steve grinned at her. He remembered her love for animals from high school, and he'd use anything at his disposal to get her to fall for him. He needed her in his life. He knew she was right, and neither of them had been ready for a relationship before. He'd been busy dealing with his father's cancer, and she'd been working toward her pub. This seemed like just the right time of life for them. After she'd spent a few minutes with the foal, they went back into the house, and he put the tape into the VCR. I wish I could get the remote to work, but it's been finicky. Let me see. Tracy took the remote from him and closed her eyes. The connector that touches the battery is dirty. Just needs to be cleaned off. She opened the back of the remote and removed the battery. Sure enough, there was a green mark on the connector, and she scraped it off with her thumbnail. There. It'll work now. He stared at her for a minute. How did you know that without looking? She bit her lip. What do you mean? You saw me take the back off. But you told me what was wrong before you took the back off. Did I? She couldn't believe she'd messed up that way. She needed to be more careful. People were going to think she was insane. He sat down, caught her hand, and tugged her down with him. Tracy? What aren't you telling me? She sighed. So you have heard rumors about my family, I'm sure. How we're all weird. Yeah. It seems like the youngest son of the 7 always has some sort of strange power. Peter has the ability to see the future. But you're not the youngest of 7 sons. No, I'm not. But apparently everyone in the family has some sort of latent power. And last year, all of my sisters were together, and something happened. There was a loud zapping sound and a power outage, and we all suddenly had strange powers. Mine is the ability to diagnose what's wrong with any object by touching it. Really? Steve wasn't sure if she was pulling his leg, despite what he'd just seen her do. She nodded. And I usually know immediately how to fix it. I knew what was wrong with your truck when you brought it in, and I told the mechanic, and it was an easy fix, so we were able to get you top dollar on your trade-in. I know it's weird, but it's true. And your sisters all have strange powers now, too? Yup. It's fun sometimes. We just told our mom about it on Sunday. Galen and I were in the kitchen together, and it just slipped out. He sat back against the couch, staring straight ahead for a moment. That's really weird. Does it freak you out? Do you want me to leave? Of course not. It just may take me a little while to process it. I will say, you having the ability to do that will be really handy around the ranch. I might keep you. She laughed. Well, as long as you're not running away screaming into the wind, I guess we're all good. Then we're good. I can't see myself ever running away. He pressed the button on the remote, and they settled back, watching the movie. As they watched, she realized that she felt completely relaxed with him. Whether it was because he now knew her secret or because he'd always been a big part of her life, she wasn't sure. What she was sure of was that she was glad it was him she'd told and not someone else. There was something almost magical about how she felt about Steve, and she wasn't going to take it for granted. Ever. After the movie, which she'd barely watched, he walked her to her car and kissed her goodnight. The kiss was soft and lingering. How am I supposed to be able to drive home now that I'm weak in the knees? She asked. He laughed. Keep your eyes on the road. As she got into the car, he leaned down and looked in. When do I get to see you again? She sighed. I'm working 10-hour days all week. Friday for the airport will be the first time. And you can be my date for Marty's graduation party on Saturday night. He frowned. That's a really long time away. Absence makes the heart grow fonder? I'm not so sure about that. I'll miss you this week. Can I call? Absolutely. I should be home by 8:30 every night. I'll call around 9. Will that work? She nodded. I'll look forward to it. As she drove away, she realized that she couldn't imagine a day without him any longer. What had she done to herself? Chapter 7. True to his word, Steve called every night that week. On Friday afternoon, he drove to Tracy's house, and they took her car to the airport in San Antonio. It was odd that she missed him so much when they were apart, because they'd been dating less than a week, but she remembered how it had been in high school, when he'd filled her every thought. So Heather got married when? January? Steve asked. December. They had a Christmas wedding. Tracy carefully changed lanes as they drove through Austin on I-35. Was it here? How did I miss there was a McClain wedding happening? It was here. It was around the time when your dad was in the hospital, though, so I think that's probably why you missed it. It was a quick wedding. They planned it all in 2 weeks. She wasn't pregnant, was she? Tracy laughed. Everyone always asks that. No, she wasn't pregnant. She was just ready to live in the same state as the man she loved. I can see that. Is her husband coming down with her? No, he didn't want to spend that much time away from the ranch. He was here for over a week in November, and his brother ended up getting hurt running both ranches, so he will stay where he is this time. Michael's a good guy, but it's really Heather who needs to be here for the graduation and wedding. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Does she know I'm going to be with you to pick her up? Nope. She doesn't. She'll figure it out when she gets there, I guess. Tracy debated for a moment but decided to tell him about her sister's power. Remember how I told you that all of us got strange powers from the Zap? Yeah? Steve remembered every word of that conversation. She'd not mentioned any of it since, and neither had he, but he really hadn't been able to stop thinking about it. If he married her, would his kids have strange powers, too? Well, Heather's power is that she can see when a couple should be together. She said there's something about their hues or auras that blend together to make them compatible or not. So, she's going to have something to say about the two of us, whether we want to hear it or not. Will she tell you in front of me? Or when you're alone? She doesn't know that you know about the powers, so she'll wait until we're alone. She doesn't even know we're dating. It's so new, and I haven't spoken to her in a couple of weeks. You didn't even confirm the flight? Nope. We just knew we were going to do it this way, and she knows I'm dependable. Mom called and confirmed this morning to make sure I was still taking off work to go get her. Dad had a conference in Austin today, and Mom doesn't like driving into San Antonio, so it was up to me. None of your other sisters could do it? Who? Rebecca's getting ready for med school. Jessica is planning her wedding. Galen is planning her wedding. Candace is busy being Candace. Marty is sleeping off exams. Nope, it's up to me today. Well, I'm glad it is, because it gave me an excuse to be with you. It's been since Monday, and I was missing you desperately. I've only eaten hungry man dinners since I last saw you. I need a real meal. Are you only dating me because I can cook? Steve laughed. Of course not. I didn't know you could cook until after we were dating. Of course, now that I know you can cook, I'm going to take advantage of it. What did you eat when your dad was still alive? Did he cook? Oh, sure. He cooked 2 hungry man dinners every night. Steve shrugged. I was raised on them. I see. Some family tradition. I need to teach you to cook. Or marry me and cook for me. We've been dating for less than a week. It has to be at least 2 weeks before I can agree to marry you. That's the law or something. He frowned. I'm not so sure about that being the law, but whatever. I can wait a week for the proposal, I guess. He had his mother's engagement ring in his pocket, and he planned to ask at the first opportunity. The first decent opportunity, that was. He wasn't going to really ask her while they were driving 55 miles per hour down the interstate. High-speed engagements weren't all they were cracked up to be. When they got to the airport, they parked in the short-term parking and checked the gate to see where to go and wait for Heather. Some people preferred to wait outside, but Tracy's family had always met their family member at the gate. It felt so much more personal. After going through security, they went and sat at the gate to wait. We're 30 minutes early. Sorry about that. I didn't time it as well as I thought I had. Way better to be early than late. And you never know what it's going to be like at this time of day. That's true. Tracy watched the tarmac, hoping her sister would land early. I bet Heather is going to be desperate for Mexican food when she gets off that plane. She told me that the Mexican food in Idaho leaves a lot to be desired. That would make sense. I can't imagine there would be good Tex-Mex in Idaho. According to Heather, Tex-Mex doesn't exist in Idaho at all. They have Taco Bells and call it Mexican food, and there's not even a Taco Bell near her. She's in a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere. That sounds like she lives near us, he said, making a joke about a neighboring town called Nowhere. Tracy grinned. It really does, doesn't it? Yup. He nodded toward the tarmac. I think her plane just landed. Tracy got to her feet. I know they will be a minute before they disembark, but I can't wait. She walked forward, so her sister would be sure to see her as soon as she was off the plane. Steve stood up to be beside her, watching for the girl he'd known his whole life. When she finally stepped off the plane, the first thing he noticed was her rounded belly. He gaped at her. Did Tracy know? Glancing at Tracy's face, he could see she didn't. Well, there was a surprise for the whole family. Tracy hurried forward and hugged Heather. Why didn't you tell us? Heather laughed softly. I thought it would be a fun surprise for everyone when I got here. She patted her stomach. I'm due in October. I feel huge. Tracy thought Heather looked like she was more like 8 months pregnant than 5. She stepped back. You remember Steve? Heather's eyes rounded. I do remember Steve. She looked back and forth between the two of them, a slow smile curving her face. He offered to ride with me to pick you up. I hate driving through that traffic alone. I don't blame you, Heather said, smiling. Muir is so small that it's hard to drive into any kind of city. I flew out of Salt Lake City and was completely overwhelmed by all the traffic. Tracy linked her arm with her sister's. Let's go get your luggage. I'm assuming you want Mexican for supper? Yes. All the Mexican. Heather glanced at her sister. And I'm totally craving your Irish nachos. I can taste them. I'll make sure you get them at least once while you're here. Tracy realized then her sister didn't know her big news. My offer was accepted on the building for the pub this week. Are you kidding? That's wonderful. I didn't know you'd gotten that far. When do you think you'll open? I'm planning for October 1st. So around the time you give birth. Heather laughed. That will be a big month for both of us. Am I still staying with Mom? Yeah, I told her you could stay with me, and she said there was no way. She wants you all to herself. Well, until tomorrow night, when she's doing Marty's laundry. Tracy sighed. There was something very wrong with their youngest sister. Definitely. Mom is going to be so excited when she sees you. Oh, and Galen and I told her our big secret on Sunday. You did? Heather looked at Steve. I guess he knows, too. Tracy blushed. I had to tell him after I fixed his remote control the other day. I see. Does he know what my power is? Tracy nodded. I told him that on the way here. Sounds good. So tomorrow is graduation and next Saturday is the wedding. Are we doing a sister night on Friday night to celebrate the brides? Definitely. I can't wait. I figured we'd do it at my house. We'll rent a musical. Since Lillian is going to join us, I thought 7 brides for 7 brothers since she's obsessed. Is she pregnant yet? They'd been married for weeks. Heather grinned at her sister. Not that they've announced, but we all know it'll be soon. That line of the family doesn't have the ability to put off babies. Neither do you from what I can see. Steve walked along behind the sisters, grinning at their banter. He had always envied large families, and he desperately wanted to be part of this one. And not just because he was head over heels in love with Tracy. Something about them made him feel welcomed in a way he never had before. He stopped walking in the middle of the airport. Head over heels in love? Where had that come from? He hadn't realized. He hurried to catch up after a minute, realizing they hadn't even noticed him lagging behind. He knew he wanted to marry Tracy, but he was in love with her. He hadn't quite realized that yet, though he wasn't sure why they hadn't seemed connected to him. Maybe he'd lost his mind along with his heart. When they got to the turnstile, the suitcases were already coming out, and Heather pointed to hers. Steve grabbed it for her and set it on the floor. Is that the only one? Heather nodded. Yeah, I might have to ask Mom to do my laundry once while I'm here. Tracy laughed. She's going to start sewing a baby quilt as soon as she sees you. She'll be mad that we won't know if it's a boy or girl. I wonder if Rebecca will be able to tell. I hope so. I would love to be able to prepare, knowing what I was having. Steve looked between the sisters. What's Rebecca's power? Heather smiled. She can diagnose people the way Tracy can diagnose things. Cool, huh? So she might be able to tell. Has she tried on anyone yet? Steve was astounded by all the powers the sisters had. The two sisters looked at each other, and both shrugged. The powers are still new enough that we don't really know what all they encompass, Tracy said. I think she might be able to tell, but I really don't know. That's cool. Steve kept walking, his mind now thinking about all the powers the sisters had. They had seemed so small at first, but when he thought about each of them having a different one, well, it was of a much larger magnitude than he'd thought in the beginning. He put the suitcase in the trunk of the car, and he folded his long legs into the back seat. He wasn't about to make a pregnant woman sit in the back. As soon as Heather got in, she slid the seat as far forward as it would go. "Do you have enough room?" "Yeah, but you could come back an inch or two if you needed to." "I have short legs." "I'm good." Heather looked at her sister. "How did I forget that Texas was so hot?" "It's only May." "What are the temperatures like in Idaho?" Tracy laughed. "It was snowing when we left for the airport." Tracy laughed. "Welcome home, sis." "I already miss Idaho." "Surprising, huh?" "You mean you miss your new husband?" "That too," Heather said with a grin. "Married life has been good to me." "How's the new dance school?" "Do you have a lot of students?" "Not as many as I had here, but this area is more populous. The students I have are a lot of fun. We had our spring recital last week, and it was crazy. One of my 2-year-olds almost danced off the stage. I jumped up and put my hand in front of her to keep her from falling. There were lots of cheers." Tracy laughed. "Sounds like it was a success." "For my students and their parents, it really was. All the moms were so proud of their little girls. It was a lot of fun." "No boys?" "Not even one." "I'm working on it." "Good. Boys should be able to dance, too." Tracy pulled out onto the highway. "Do you want to stop to eat here or Austin? Or go home?" "I want comida or Taco Hut." "Nothing else will do." Steve and Tracy both said comida at the same time, causing Heather to laugh. "I guess we're having comida," Heather said. "I knew I had to have it at least once while I was here, so tonight is it." "Should we get Mom before we go?" Tracy asked. "Nah. We'll eat, and then you can deliver me." Heather looked at her sister. "Now how long have you and Steve been dating?" "A week. He bought a truck from me last weekend, and we reconnected." "I know you two were good friends in high school. Haven't you hung out since?" Steve answered for them. "Not really. Tracy's been working and going to school, and I've been dealing with my dad. He died last month." "Oh, I'm sorry." "Thank you." He said nothing else, because there was nothing else to say. Even though the man had been difficult, he had been his father. He'd done the best he knew how to do after his mother died, and the two of them had come to a truce before his death. "Steve is running the ranch now. And he has new kittens." Tracy knew that Steve would want the subject changed as soon as possible. "Oh, kittens." Heather smiled. "I want to see the kittens." "I'm not sure I'll be able to pry you away from your mother from the way Tracy talks, but if you have time, I'd be glad to show them to you," he told her. "Thanks." "You're right, though. I doubt there will be time." Heather sighed. "It's going to be a long, busy week. But a good one, I hope." Tracy was excited about the wedding. And there would be a graduation party the next day. Why was this time of year always so busy? Chapter 8. Around noon the next day, Tracy met with her sisters and their parents to head to the UT graduation together. Rebecca got there right after Tracy, and Tracy pulled her aside and whispered in her ear. Rebecca's eyes widened, but she grinned and nodded. "I haven't tried yet, but I will." The two of them went into the living room together, and Rebecca immediately walked to Heather, putting her hands on her sister's belly. She closed her eyes and seemed to concentrate. Heather? Are you seeing an obstetrician? Or a GP? Just a GP for now." "Why? Is something wrong with the baby?" Rebecca shook her head. "No, the babies are fine. All four of them. Heather stared at her sister for a moment with her jaw dropped, but then she laughed. Surely Rebecca was joking. Quadruplets? Who had quadruplets? This baby is natural. There were no fertility drugs involved. I promise, it's only one. Two tops. Heather, I'm not kidding. You're having 4 little girls. They're fraternal, and they're healthy, and so are you. But there are 4 of them. Rebecca looked over at Tracy, her eyes begging for help. Tracy shrugged. She had no idea what to say to such a thing. As far as she knew, there had been no multiples in their family. Not for generations. I don't think she's joking, Heather. I'm really not. Heather sat down on the couch behind her, looking dazed. 4? What am I going to do with 4 babies? How will I take care of them? She stared straight ahead, looking as if she wanted to vomit. Your face is turning green, Heather, Tracy said, starting to worry. Mom. Barbara McClain hurried into the room and looked at her eldest daughter. What's wrong with you? You look like you've seen a ghost. Heather just sat staring straight ahead of her. There were no words. Rebecca answered for her sister. Mom, I just told Heather she's having quadruplets. 4 perfectly healthy little girls. That's why she's showing so much already. Barbara sat down beside Heather, her face, so like her daughter's, filled with shock. Are you sure? Well, I've never diagnosed anyone as being pregnant with quadruplets, and I'm not a doctor yet, so I really can't diagnose anyone, but, yeah, I'm sure. There's a sonogram machine at the hospital here in town. I'm sure I can talk the tech into using it on her to confirm. I'm not trying to upset anyone. No, I know you're not, Barbara said, still sounding funny. When can you do that? Rebecca shrugged. I'll call now. The tech is a friend of mine. She hurried to the phone and punched in a number. Hey, Tina. It's Rebecca. Can I talk you into doing a sonogram on my sister sometime this week? I have a feeling that she's carrying multiples. She paused for a moment. Yeah, I know. Okay. Thanks. She looked at Heather. She'll do the sonogram at 5:30 Monday. That's after the hospital closes. Heather looked at Rebecca. Thanks, I think. What am I going to tell Michael? I'm sorry, but I'm having a litter instead of just one baby? I have no idea. I don't know how Jeremy would respond either, but, well, what am I supposed to do? Lie to you? No, I'm glad you didn't lie, but, 4 babies? All at once? No wonder I'm already wearing maternity clothes and feeling huge. Bob McClain walked into the room then, not noticing anything wrong with his wife or daughters. Let's go. We're going to be late for the graduation. Tracy reached out and took one of Heather's hands. Ride with me. Rebecca nodded. I'm riding with you as well. We'll talk. Heather needed to be led to the car and reminded to buckle herself. She was obviously having a very hard time with the news she'd just been given. I hope you're wrong. Tracy and Rebecca kept up a steady stream of chatter on the way to UT, both of them doing everything they could to steer the conversation away from babies. By the time they reached the campus, Heather was back to herself. As they walked into the auditorium, she whispered, I'm having 4 babies. Rebecca and Tracy exchanged an amused look. Maybe the idea would grow on her. They both hoped it would. Asterisk. Monday afternoon, Tracy and Barbara went with Heather to support her for the sonogram. Rebecca's friend Tina was a sweetheart, and she talked about the sonogram process as she got Heather to lie back comfortably. This is going to feel cold on your belly. Have you had a sonogram? Heather shook her head. No, I see a GP, and he felt like I was growing normally and said I didn't need one. Tina smiled. I think in a few years, sonograms are going to be part of every pregnancy, but right now, they're so new, you only get one if something seems to be wrong. Since your pregnancy seems to be normal, there was no reason. She squirted some gel onto Heather's stomach and put a metal wand against it. As she moved the wand around, she smiled. There's one. Can you see? She pointed out the head and the body of the baby, helping the others to see what they were looking at. Here's a second baby. And a third. I think Rebecca was right. Your sister has an amazing ability to understand things. She kept moving the wand. I think that's 4. 4? You're not sure? Tracy asked. She was sure, though. Rebecca had said 4, and that meant that Heather was having 4. It's not an exact science. Truly, there could be another baby hidden behind one of them. It's hard to tell. When it's just 1 or 2, it's easier. Tina wiped off the wand, setting it down. You're going to need to see your doctor right away. Who is he? I live in Idaho, Heather said immediately. My doctor is there. Well, as soon as you're home, make an appointment. Or make an appointment now to see him as soon as you get there. You're going to be high risk with that many babies. Tina helped Heather sit up. Congratulations. As they left the little room, Heather looked at her mother. 2 days ago, I thought my world was ending because Rebecca said I was having quadruplets. Now I can't wait to hold all 4 of them. Barbara nodded. You'll love them all so much. You're going to be a good mother, Heather. Heather wiped away tears. Now I know why I've been so emotional. I'm crying for 5. Tracy laughed softly. I'm happy for you, Heather. I'm calling Michael as soon as I get to your house, Mom. I can't wait to tell him. Or maybe I should tell him in person. I wouldn't give him news like that over that phone, Tracy said with a grin. She could just picture her brother-in-law fainting. What if he hit his head? He was living alone. Someone would need to call 911. Maybe you're right. I'll just call him and tell him I have some great news that I can't wait to tell him. Heather practically skipped out of the hospital. And now I know why I look like I'm 6 months pregnant already. Lots of babies. We should have Mexican food to celebrate. Tracy said with a grin. Nope. I'm craving your Irish nachos. We'll stop at the store and get the stuff on the way, but you're cooking tonight, Trace. Tracy nodded. I was going to cook for Steve at my place. I'll have him drive to Mom's instead. He won't care as long as he's not eating yet another hungry man. After hitting the grocery store, they went to Mom and Dad's house, and Tracy went straight to the kitchen. I'm going to take 1 minute to call Steve to tell him to come here, and then you can call Michael. Heather nodded, heading into the living room. As she and Mom walked toward the couch, Tracy heard her say, No wonder I'm so tired. I'm sleeping for 5. You're doing everything for 5 for a while, Barbara agreed, a huge grin on her face. It seemed that if Heather was happy about the babies, they could all be happy about them. Steve got there as Tracy was taking her homemade potato chips out of the deep fryer. It's just about ready. We just got some news about Heather, and we're all celebrating tonight. Steve leaned against the counter, one eyebrow raised. What's the good news? Heather's having quadruplets. 4 little girls. Steve coughed. 4? And this is good news? Tracy laughed. It's good news. At least Heather thinks so, so we're all thrilled for her. I can't imagine having that many at once myself, but it's not up to me. Quadruplets. I hope they don't run in the family. Not that I know of. There are family stories about triplet sisters with power at the time of William the Conqueror, but no one can substantiate. That was 900 years ago. That would be hard to substantiate. Steve stole one of her chips and bit into it. These are warm. I just made them. Now stop. Heather chose this meal, and she's eating for 5. From the living room, Heather called. I'm crying for 5 and sleeping for 5, too. Steve chuckled softly. Sounds like she's doing everything for 5. It does. Tracy gathered several bowls with the different ingredients in them. For the restaurant, I'd plate these, but for the family, I make them fix their own. They get what they want that way. Marty hurried into the kitchen then. What a day. I put in applications all over town. She took a seat at the table. I'm bushed. What's everyone else up to? Heather waddled into the room then. I'm eating for 5. That's what I'm up to. 5? Why are you eating for 5? Are you trying to tell me that no one else gets to eat tonight? Marty asked. They all laughed as Heather explained. Quadruplets. Do you believe? She shook her head. Michael is going to flip out. I'm sure he is. Marty stared at her sister as if she had 3 heads. I can't believe you sound so happy about it. Well, I do love kids, and I already knew I was pregnant. Heather shrugged. For blessings from God. All at once, though. I'd take 7 blessings if they weren't all at once. After the meal, they left Marty to do the dishes, much to her dismay. But I was putting in applications all day. I'm tired. I'm putting my feet up for 5. Heather retorted. I'm going to be a grandmother of 4, Barbara said. That takes some getting used to. I cooked. Tracy said. I worked all day, Steve said. Bob ignored them all as he went to his study to work. Marty grumbled, but she did the dishes by herself, while the rest of them sat in the living room, talking to each other. About time she did her share, Tracy whispered to Heather. Heather nodded emphatically. Mom, you're going to have to make 4 baby quilts. It's time to get out the sewing machine. Barbara grinned. My fingers are already tired just thinking about it. The look on her face told everyone how excited she was. I'm going to fly up there and help out when they come. You're going to need an extra pair of hands. Thankfully, I'll have Michael's mom as well. It's going to take a village to raise this litter. Heather patted her belly happily. The about face she'd done made Tracy want to giggle, but there was no point. It would just offend her sister. Shortly after that, Steve and Tracy headed out. Tracy had ridden with her mom, so she had asked Steve to take her home. I'm glad we have a little time together tonight. It feels like it's been all family all the time for the past few days, Tracy told him. It really does, he said. But I think your family is pretty amazing, and since I didn't grow up with siblings, I'm just not complaining one little bit. I'm glad you don't mind. I'm ready for a little time with just you, though. I hope you didn't mind sharing our evening with family. After Heather found out it really was quadruplets, and then she wanted my nachos, and, well, I couldn't tell her no. She's craving for 5, you know. I do know. She commented on a lot of things she's doing for 5. Steve shook his head. Mind if I come in for a little bit? Not at all. Just know that I'm not watching a movie. I have a 10-hour shift again tomorrow, and I'm only staying up for another hour. That's fine. I just want some time with you. I don't much care what we do. Ah. You're being so sweet. Is there something you want from me? Oh, you really don't want to go there, Steve grinned at her, parking in her driveway. Once they were inside, Tracy switched to hostess mode. Do you want something to drink? I have Coke or water. Or I think I might have some sweet tea. He caught her wrist and pulled her to him. I don't need anything but you. Lowering his head, he kissed her for the first time in what felt like months. When you always have family around, I don't get enough time to kiss you. She laughed softly, leaning against him. It felt like forever, didn't it? It did. I almost bought a fly swatter and started hitting them, but I wasn't sure how you'd react. Well, you can't hit Heather, because she's breathing for 5, but you could swap Marty if you wanted to. He grinned. I could, huh? How did she like the creepy-eyed doll? She loved it. She's got it on a shelf in her room with her others. She's always collected dolls, but there's something about the Cabbage Patch Kids that creeps me out. Oh well. They make gift-giving easy, right? I hadn't thought of it that way, but they really do. Tracy took his hand and pulled him over to the couch with her, sinking down onto it. Life's been crazy. So this week is all Heather all the time. When I'm not working, that is. Friday night, we have a girls' night here at my house. We're all going to act silly and watch some musical. Maybe Grease too. And then Saturday, at 2, is the wedding. You'll still be my date? She didn't want to go to that wedding alone. She wasn't sure why, but she felt like life was passing her by as all her sisters married. Of course, I will. Tracy sighed contentedly and rested her head on his shoulder. My hero. Chapter 9. Friday evening, all the sisters gathered as planned, filling Tracy's tiny house. They watched 7 Brides for 7 Brothers and danced around singing and laughing. Lillian, their cousin Peter's wife, joined them for the pre-marriage festivities. Halfway through the song Going Courtin', Heather got up and danced, her lithe body still bending in ways the others couldn't. When she finished, she curtsied for the others. I'm dancing for 5 now. Marty threw popcorn at her eldest sister. You're doing everything for 5. We get it. You're having more babies than anyone should at one time. You'd better be glad that didn't make me cry, Marty McClain. Or I'd have to call Michael to come down here and chew you out. Heather lifted her glass of raspberry lemonade in a toast to her sisters. May you both find as much love as I have with my Michael, but hopefully not be quite as fertile. Galen shook her head. I think Zach would have a heart attack if I came home one night and told him I was having quadruplets. I think one at a time is good for anyone. After the others were gone, Tracy cleaned up the mess left and thought about her Steve. After just 2 weeks of dating, she felt as if their lives were hopelessly interwoven. She thought of him first thing in the morning and last thing before she fell asleep at night. She was in love with Steve, her buddy from high school. Her first crush. Her everything. Asterisk. On Monday morning, Tracy took Heather back to the airport, hugging her goodbye. I swear you've grown in the 10 days you've been here. I'm growing for 5, you know. I know. I know. Tracy couldn't help but laugh. I wish I could see Michael's face when you told him. Me too. It's going to be amazing. With those as her last words, Heather kissed Tracy's cheek and hurried into the line to get on the plane. Tracy watched her go with both sadness and happiness. Sad she was going to be missing her sister, but happy for her, because she was so darned happy for herself. Happy and doing everything for 5. Asterisk. That afternoon was filled with signing papers to close on the property for the pub. Tracy was excited even as her hand shook signing the papers. As soon as she was finished, she met with her contractor, giving him a copy of the key to the building. As the two of them walked through together, she explained exactly what she was looking for and what she needed. I really want to preserve the look of the building. Instead of being an ice cream parlor, it will be a pub, but the bar will remain in the same place. I want booths throughout and high-top tables. I want a mirror along that wall, behind the bar. The bathrooms need to have a European feel. The contractor took note of everything she said. I'll check with you each step of the way. Will you be able to come in every week to see where we are? He asked. She nodded. Probably more often than that. You'll work Monday through Friday? Yes, of course. If necessary, we can work weekends, but I'd have to ask for extra. As long as you can have everything done and have it ready for me to train my people by the 1st of August, we're good. I can do that with no problem. Frank shook her hand before leaving her there alone, looking around her. This was her place now. Soon it would be filled with everything she'd dreamed of for so long. It was her place, and it always would be. She turned when she heard the door open behind her, surprised that anyone would try to come in. It was Steve, and he had a grin on his face. He walked to her with 2 bottles of Coke, the caps already off. He handed one to her, and raised his bottle in a toast. To McClain's Irish pub, may it be everything you've dreamed it will be. Tracy clinked her bottle against his, and took a sip. I wasn't expecting you. You said you were meeting the contractor here after the signing, so I called your real estate agent and had her call after you finished. Are you happy? She nodded. I'm so happy. I can just picture exactly how I want everything. I've started designing the menu. This place is going to be my dream come true. She took another sip of her Coke, looking at him over the bottle. Thank you for supporting me. Even if it's a mistake and I go under, I'll never forget how you stood by my side through the whole thing, encouraging me every step of the way. You won't fail. What makes you so sure of that? Marty would be taunting you with your failure before it ever happened if you were doomed. And she keeps saying how great it's going to be. Steve winked at her. She laughed. You're absolutely right. There's no one who is more likely to throw a future failure in my face than my youngest sister, who still doesn't have a job. I think Mom is making her do her own laundry now, though. She has to make quilts for a whole lot of grandbabies. He wrapped his arm around her waist, holding her close. Heather's on her way home? She nodded. She should be with Michael in Salt Lake City by now. She promised she'd wait until she got home to tell him it was quads, though, because she didn't want to deal with him passing out. That's very smart. Steve shook his head. I cannot imagine being in his shoes. He could imagine her being pregnant, of course, because he loved the idea of having children with her, but not 4 at once. No one needed 4 at once. Do you want to go to Comida and celebrate? Is there queso involved? Always, if you want there to be. He led her toward the door, taking the key from her and locking it up for her. I think you're going to love doing business here. It really is a good location. I wonder why no one ever bought it. I think most people in town are looking to lease a commercial property, not buy it. This one was never for lease, always for sale. So I'm the one who got to snatch it up. It's mine, 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 all mine. He laughed. I remember you saying that in high school. You'd get a good test back, and you'd say that. Yeah, I was always a little bit odd. I wasn't a scholar like most of my sisters. I always knew I wanted to do something different with my life. Be an entrepreneur. But I didn't know until my trip after high school exactly what I wanted to do. I'm glad you figured it out. He led her to his truck. Let's have some good Mexican. Sounds wonderful. After dinner, they went back to her place, and while she worked out a schedule of the things she wanted completed by when, he flipped through channels on the television. It felt very comfortable to her, sharing a space with him but not having to actually be interacting all of the time. Finally, she closed the calendar she'd been writing in and walked over to the couch, snuggling down beside him, her head on his shoulder. I'm so tired, but it was a good day. I feel like everything is going my way. That's how it looks to me as well. He kissed the top of her head, thinking about the ring in his pocket. He thought about pulling it out there and then, but he wanted that day to be all about her closing on the property and getting the ball rolling for her future instead of their engagement day. She deserved a day all to herself. A few minutes later, she walked him to the door. I'm going to be working tons of hours again this week. I probably can't see you. Friday night? He asked. I work Saturday this week again. How about Saturday night? He frowned but finally nodded. I'll call you every night. That sounds good. She stood on tiptoe and brushed her lips against his. See you soon. Talk to you every night. With those words, he jogged to his truck and drove off, leaving her staring after him. He seemed to think she was pushing him off by not having time for him in the evenings, but the truth was she was too busy. She was exhausted when she finished work every evening. She would have to worry about it later. He would understand soon enough, she hoped. If they were meant to be together, then he would. If not, he wouldn't. Suddenly she realized she'd never asked Heather about their auras. She thought for a minute about calling her to ask, but she knew her sister would be dealing with her husband, who may or may not be having a heart attack at that very moment. No, she'd wait a day or two. Asterisk. Every day that week, Tracy stopped by the pub on her lunch hour. Sometimes she'd just pop her head in, and sometimes she'd take her lunch so she could watch magic happen while she ate. Every night, just before she fell asleep, Steve would call her, and they'd chat about their days for a few minutes, and she'd go to sleep, still hearing his deep voice in her mind as she drifted off. It wasn't until Friday evening that she finally had a bit of time to call Heather. Hey, you. Hey, Tracy. What are you up to? Well, I wanted to call and see if Michael survived your news first of all. Heather laughed. He didn't know what to think. At first, he was sure I was joking, but then I showed him the sonogram picture that Tina gave me, and I counted heads for him. He sat in shock for a good 10 minutes before he could speak again. Tracy grinned, picturing Heather's big rancher husband reacting exactly that way. Have you seen your GP yet? Yup. There's no obstetrician in our little town, so I'm having to make a 30-minute drive each way, but I'm lucky to have one that close. They're watching me closely, but I'm doing everything I should be. I'm healthy, and so are the babies. They told me they'll be putting me on bed rest before the summer is up, but for now, I'm okay to keep doing everything I usually do. Did you tell him that you usually do handstands and pirouettes? Tracy wasn't sure any doctor would let a woman pregnant with quadruplets do those things. Doc said my normal level of activity, whatever that means to me. I told him I teach dance and I'm always on my feet. He said to keep it up. Then I guess you need to keep it up. Tracy smiled, thinking of her sister dancing around with her huge stomach. I forgot to ask about auras while you were here. How's mine with Steve? Do you really want to know? Doesn't that take some of the fun out of things? Does that mean it's bad? Heather sighed. You were meant for each other. A truer violet I've never seen. Tracy let out a breath. Thank goodness. I'm head over heels in love with the man, and I was afraid you were going to tell me we were all wrong for each other. Nope. Not you two. I could have told you that the two of you were meant for each other back when you were in high school. Before I had my powers. Everyone could see it, you know. No, I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me now. Tracy smiled as she sat down, staring at the dishes she needed to wash from her supper. I appreciate you, big sis. Love you, Trace. Love you, too. For the rest of that evening, she wore her Walkman, playing a mixed tape she'd made for herself. It was mostly Journey, with a little Styx and Air Supply. She was in the mood for some soft music that made her feel like she was in love, and she definitely was. Laundry and dishes were easy as she danced around to her music. Finally, she put the Walkman down and got ready for bed. She was tired, and she had one more day of work to go and then 2 glorious days off. She wished she could go ahead and quit working at the dealership so she could just concentrate on her pub, but that wasn't possible. It was too important that she earn as much as she could between now and the restaurant opening. The money was necessary to see her through the lean months at the beginning. Too many restaurants went under in the first 5 years, but McClain's would not. As she was drifting off to sleep, she realized that Steve hadn't called her that night. It was the first night since they'd started dating that he hadn't called when he said he would. Maybe he was losing interest in her. She hoped not, but she couldn't let go of her dreams just because she was in a relationship. It wasn't who she was at all. Asterisk. Steve looked at the clock and realized it was too late to try to call her again. He'd made over 30 calls to Tracy that night, and she hadn't answered at all. At first, it had just been busy signal after busy signal. But after that, it rang and rang. She didn't have an answering machine, so he couldn't even leave her a message. As he undressed for bed, he worried. Had she lost interest in him? He set the ring he carried around on his nightstand. Why was she dodging his calls? Surely, she'd known it was him calling all those times. She must not have wanted to talk to him for some reason. He couldn't think of anything he'd done to annoy her, but maybe he was just calling too often? He didn't know, but he'd figure it out later. Climbing into bed, he stared up at the ceiling, hoping he hadn't done something to anger her. She was the most wonderful woman in the entire world, and he didn't know what he'd do without her. He was already making plans for their marriage and their eventual children. Soon, he promised. He'd ask her soon. Chapter 10. Tracy felt oddly sad all day Saturday, without really understanding. Her life seemed great to her most of the time. She was finally close to opening the business she'd dreamed of for years. Heather was about to make her an aunt 4 times over. And she was no longer certain of where she stood with Steve. She hadn't realized just how much she looked forward to his evening calls, and when there hadn't been one, the letdown was enormous. She was supposed to see him that evening, but no firm plans had been made. Maybe he had better things to do. All day, she worked hard. She sold 2 cars, which was a very good day by anyone's measure. When it was finally quitting time, she was relieved. Because she'd been so mopey, she felt like she was letting the whole dealership down. She left work and drove the short distance to her house, wondering if she should even bother to get ready for a date or if she should change into her pajamas and plan for an early night at home. Tracy didn't have to wonder long, because when she pulled into her driveway, Steve pulled in right behind her. She got out of her car slowly and turned to him, feeling like she needed to walk on eggshells. He must be angry with her if he hadn't called. Hey. Hey. Steve looked at her, seeming puzzled by something. Are you still planning on going out tonight? Tracy nodded. Sure. I just need to change into some jeans. What are you planning? Why don't we do a picnic in the park? We can run by Taco Hut and get some tacos and just go for a walk and be alone. She looked down at her business suit. I think I should change for that. He smiled, seeming distant to her. Good idea. Do you want to wait inside? He nodded, feeling like the whole conversation was stiff. Something was going through her mind, and he had no idea what it was. Why was she acting so standoffish? Once Steve was settled on her couch, Tracy hurried into her bedroom to change for their date. She put on a pair of jean shorts and a tank top with a pair of tennis shoes. She quickly braided her hair into one long braid down her back and then headed into the living room. Should I bring anything from home? He shook his head. Nah, we'll just eat off the paper, unless that offends you like the hungry man foil does. She made a face. The hungry man foil doesn't offend me. Just the fact that you eat so many TV dinners. You should eat something healthy once in a while. But there are almost always vegetables included, he protested. Yes, but do you eat them? No, they're usually gross. She laughed, feeling at ease with him all at once. You make me laugh. I hope you never stop. He caught her hand and pulled her to him, kissing her softly. I missed you this week. I missed you, too. I was busy and felt like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, but I thought of you constantly. She wondered for a moment if she should bring up the missed phone call of the night before, but she didn't want to be upset about it, and she knew it was time. I missed talking to you last night. I called and called. You never answered. She stared at him for a moment, trying to understand. Oh no. I was cleaning and wearing my Walkman. I was upset with you for never calling, and it was my fault. He grinned, glad he understood now. No one's fault. Changing the subject would be smart, now that he understood what had happened. Did you hear if Heather's husband fainted when he found out about the quads? He asked. Tracy grinned, walking to the passenger side of his truck. I talked to her last night. She said that he was incoherent for about an hour, but then he was all right. She shook her head. I didn't tell you how Heather reacted, though. When Rebecca put her hand on her so she could tell her if the baby was a boy or a girl, she told Heather that the babies were fine. All 4 of them. And Heather freaked out. We were about to leave for Marty's graduation, and we had to take her arms and guide her to the car. By the time we got to UT, she was talking about how wonderful it was going to be the mother of 4 beautiful little girls. Took her a good 45 minutes before she stopped freaking out. If I were her husband, I'd be freaking out at the idea of buying that many diapers. I've heard they're expensive, and diapers for 4? I don't even want to think about it. Well, I'm sure that thought has crossed Michael's mind once or twice. When he pulled up to the taco hut, they both got out to order their food. It was a walk-up restaurant with a little picnic area outside, but there was no drive-through. Once they'd ordered, they got back into the truck, and he drove to the park. I've been coming to this park since I was a little girl, Tracy said softly. I always help out at the fundraiser for the boys' ranch. Her uncle had run a boys' ranch for as long as she could remember, and she knew her father had grown up on the same ranch. It had been run by the McClain family since shortly after the turn of the century. I think that's awesome. I love that your whole family is involved in it. I bet it takes a lot of money to run. Those fundraisers have got to help. Tracy grinned. The ranch is funded by lottery winnings. I know that sounds crazy, but Peter has been able to see the future since he was a little boy. He would see lottery numbers, and his dad would go get the ticket from whatever state he saw. But he'd always be sure to get one number off. That way big money was coming in, but not big enough to raise any flags anywhere. That's crazy. So what happens with the money from the fundraisers? Steve had always helped out at the fundraisers when he could. It was odd to hear that the money didn't really help run the ranch. It's put into trust funds for each boy on the ranch. They will all receive them when they're grown. Enough for college, or to start a business, or just a nice nest egg for the future. Whatever the boys want to do with it. I had no idea. That's fabulous. The boys, who came from such rough starts, will have solid futures. Do they know? They have no idea. Each boy is given the money when he turns 21. If they go to college, they're given a stipend every month from the fund, but the state of Texas sends them to college. They won't pay for grad school or medical school, though, and the money is there for that if the boys want to use it. That's really amazing. Your family is something else. Something he wanted to be part of. The ring was burning a hole in his pocket. He was asking tonight if he could gather up enough courage. She was so beautiful to him, something of a goal in his life. Someone he needed by his side for the rest of his days. He pulled into the park, and she carried their carry-out drinks, while he carried the bag with their tacos and burritos. They went to a picnic table and sat down, using the sacks for their plates. Children played on the swings behind them, but the park was growing quiet. It was late in the day, and the children would be going to bed soon. Thanks to the time of year, it was still light enough for them to stay out for a while. He talked of casual things while they ate. He mentioned his plans for the ranch and that he wanted to do a major renovation on the house. His family had lived in the area just as long as hers had, and they'd always been in that house. Unlike the McClains, his miserly family hadn't done renovations every generation. Instead, they'd fixed what needed to be fixed, but hadn't worried at all about how fashionable the house looked. The bright oranges of the 70s would look terribly modern in his house. After they ate, he asked her to walk with him through the wooded area just behind the park. "I love this spot. It's so peaceful." She smiled and nodded. "It's my favorite. I think Zach proposed to Galen here." Steve frowned. He couldn't propose in the same place her brother-in-law had proposed to her sister. He had to think of something else. They continued on their walk, but he felt as if his bubble had been burst. He wanted his marriage proposal to be something they told their children and grandchildren about, and who wanted to say, "Well, I proposed there, but Uncle Zach proposed to Aunt Galen there first." No, it had to be something better. They walked through the area, and they talked softly about their hopes and dreams. Tracy spent a lot of time talking about specific things the contractors had done that week to ready the pub for opening. She mentioned that she'd sent the final menu off to a printer to have it readied for them. Finally, they got back to his truck, and he drove them out to his ranch. He had a different idea, one that had to be better than Zach's proposal to Galen. Why he felt the need to outdo the other man, he didn't know, but he couldn't imitate him. It had to be more special than that to Tracy. When they got to the ranch, he pulled into the driveway and led her to the porch swing, which was one of the few things his mother had changed about the house. He only knew that because his grandmother had told him when he was a boy, but it made it special to him. Once they were both on the porch, Tracy turned to him, a frown on her face. "I wasn't expecting you to bring me back here tonight. What's going on?" He pulled the ring from his pocket. "I want there to be changes in my house, just like the changes I'm making to this ranch. I want there to be children playing here and a woman who loves living here just as much as I do. I can't think of anyone I'd rather have at my side for the rest of my life. Tracy, will you do me the honor of being my bride? Will you have babies with me? But only one at a time, please." Tracy felt the tears in her eyes even as she laughed. "Yes, I'll marry you, Steve. I can't think of anyone I'd rather grow old with. And I only want one baby at a time as well. I really don't know how Heather and Michael are going to manage." He grinned, slipping the ring on her finger. "This was my mother's engagement ring, and I would really love it if you'd wear it. I'll get you a new one, but it's really my only connection to her. That ring and this old porch swing. I'd love to wear something that was your mother's." She looked at the swing, feeling the sturdy wooden post that dangled from the beams of the roof. "What do you mean about this swing?" The only thing she ever changed about this house was the swing. She wanted a front porch swing to sit on in the evenings, and Dad added this for her. From what I've gathered, she was the love of his life, and he never got over losing her. He never stopped blaming me for her death. He shook his head. "She died from complications of childbirth when I was 3 days old. My grandmother told me that she loved me more than anything else in life. I'm so sorry. I had heard she died when you were young, and I thought it was in childbirth, but I never knew for sure. When I was cleaning out Dad's things after his death, I found lots of photo albums with pictures of the two of them. There were a few pictures of them while she was pregnant with me, and then nothing. There were a few loose pictures of her with me, and the three of us together, but they were never put into the album. It was like he wanted to forget that the three of us were ever a family." Tracy covered his hand with hers. "I hope you know that it wasn't your fault she died. It just happened. It was more his than yours. He got her pregnant after all. You were just the result. Steve shrugged. I've never really blamed myself. But I know he blamed me, and that made things weird. He shook his head. I'm done talking about dreary things. You said you'd marry me. Neither of us have time to plan a big wedding like your sisters had. How would you feel if we got married at the courthouse with just your family? Maybe next weekend? She shook her head. I don't mind a small wedding with just family, but I don't want to get married in a courthouse. Let's get married at church. We can still do it next weekend if the pastor is free. You don't mind doing it small? I never had the dream of being a bride and wearing white for a big wedding. My dream was always having my own business. I can wear one of my sister's dresses, and we'll do it quick and easy. Sounds good. He leaned toward her and brushed her lips with his. I can't wait until we spend every day together for the rest of our lives. I can't either. Epilogue. A week later, Tracy stood beside Steve at the front of the church where she'd gone since she was a little girl. And her great-grandparents had once gone as well, from what she could tell. They clasped hands and promised to love, honor, and cherish one another for the rest of their lives. When the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, they kissed briefly, and she whispered, I love you. He smiled. I love you, too. For as long as we both shall live. Her sisters gathered around them and congratulated them, and her parents looked on. She had many cousins and aunts and uncles in attendance, and there was only one person missing. Heather hadn't been able to fly back again so soon, but Tracy had spoken with her that morning on the phone, so she felt as if she was there. There was no wedding reception, and instead there was a big lunch at her parents' house that had been put together by family. Everyone had brought a dish, and in the end it was enough. It was all she needed. Because Steve was there at her side. And she was certain they'd spend the rest of their lives living happily ever after.